And we are live. What's up, world? It's your boy C's from theclife.com. Welcome back to the Fitpro Development Podcast. My next guest comes highly recommended, and I am eager to hear her story. She has scaled her business upwards of 350K and looking to dig down and extract some of that information for you because she helps coaches like you and I do the same. So, without any further ado, let's welcome Katie Grimes to the
Hi,
podcast.
thanks for having me.
Hey, what's up, Katie?
I'm
How
excited
you?
to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
So,
excited to dive in.
for those who are being introduced to you for the first time, let us know who you are, where you're from, and what it is that you currently do.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Grimes. I'm originally from Massachusetts, but I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire now. And I am an online business owner who helps people all over the world scale their businesses. So that might be that they're starting their business for the first time or they're growing. And yeah, to kind of reach for that like massive success. Like I look back at that stat of the 350K and I'm like, holy I like did that.
Yeah,
And trying
that's
to make
big.
it easy for other people to do it a lot faster than it took me. That took 3 years. And a lot of my current clients have been have been growing their business a lot faster, which I'm super excited about. So
That's awesome because right now, in this time, in this day and age, there are people who are either sitting home or going to work, right? And they're doing like either fitness or looking for the side business on the side so that they can scale up and quit their job, right? And what you've done in 3 years, some people don't do in 20 years, right? So I'm
yeah.
eager to dig into that. But before we do, tell us the story because you used to be a fitness professional and then you pivoted, right? So
Yeah.
tell us that story of your entrepreneurship and within the fitness industry, and then now your coaching
Yeah, it started
business.
in yeah, it started in college. So my dad is was always an aerobics instructor when I was growing up, and I would always like go to his classes and watch him like messing around in his like tight athletic wear. And I always admired that he had a full-time job and then he did this on the side, and that he, as many of us know, like you can get a free gym membership, and I love the perks of it, but I also loved how many people that we were interacting with like before and after class. And I was a dancer. That's how I grew up studying dance. I did tap, jazz, ballet. And then as I got into college, I really focused in on hip hop and Pilates, and I focused in on ballet. And around that time, I had gotten a job at a really prestigious like firm, an investment firm in Boston. And I was making $36,000 my first year out. And I was like, did you guys miss a zero? Because how's a girl going to eat, let alone like pay her rent? And my
Hmm.
dad, I remember where I was. I was walking on Fleet Street in Boston, and my dad said, "Why don't I give you a little bit of cash? I think it was 350 to get my spinning certification. I'll give you $350. You need to pay me back, but why don't you become a spinning instructor? Because that's what he was doing." He goes, "It's good money, Kate. I mean, you can make like 50 to 100 bucks." And that was the first time I remember tasting like entrepreneurship. I remember like going to sports, it was Sports Club LA, now it's Equinox, but I went to Beacon Hill Athletic Club. I mean, I grinded. I went to like every club and I was like, I don't care if I teach for $25 or I teach for 100, like I just want to teach. And I think it really helped me perfect my skills as a communicator, and also how many people learn differently, like whether you're kinesthetic or audio or visual. And really, how do you teach in a way where no matter what type of person they are, they will really understand what it is that the cue that you're giving them, right? So I left this firm that I was working at for years, and I left during the recession because I was so passionate about teaching fitness. And I was having a lot of success, meaning like some of these really big firms in Boston, Sports Club LA, et cetera, were hiring me to come work for them. And I just loved it. I loved being in the fitness industry. I love the people who were just as like enthusiastic about their health and wellness. What I didn't realize at the time was that my health and wellness was taking a back seat because I was working out too much. I was not really resting and eating the way that I should be because I was just like go, 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 trying to work a corporate job and this part time job, which felt like a full time job. And Long story short, I left my job in the middle of a recession, and my boss was like, "You're crazy," because we were in the middle of a recession and people are like looking for jobs. And I was like, "No, I really want to go out on my own and start my own fitness business." Long story short, I did that. So I was just like 1099 in it around town and working up in like, I actually started working up in New Hampshire and Maine to try to like really branch out. And as you can imagine how this story went, I like blew out a hamstring. I just was like doing too much.
Yeah.
Fast forward to like settling in on a corporate job and was still teaching Pilates on the side. I stopped doing spinning and was teaching Pilates on the side and was like going into corporations and teaching their employees. And it was fun for a while and I was making great money, but I started a commercial real estate job that really demanded more of my time. And I was like, you know what, this is the time where I'm going to focus on myself and my health and wellness. So what I ended up doing was kind of the same. I branched the two together. Like in commercial real estate, there weren't a lot of women who were working in our industry. And if they were, we didn't know one another. I loved fitness. I had gotten sober from alcohol at that point. I wasn't an alcoholic. I just found that like I was drinking a lot because of the job I had. We were networking all the time. And I was like, what if I created a sober event with one of my teammates and we will do no alcohol, we'll do smoothies and juices, and we'll do a workout. And everybody will just like come together who are women in the industry. And see, it took off. It took off to the point where like somebody bought us. Like, and it was insane. I didn't make any money off of that deal. So that's like lesson number one. Okay. Is like go ahead and put a contract in place and make sure that your intellectual property is your intellectual property. That was a little tough for me to swallow because now it's a all over the US. So it's fine. It's wonderful for them.
Wow. Yep. Paperwork is big. Paperwork is big.
I mean, seriously, it's the number one thing I have every client do now. So fast forward, I had 2018 was a really rough year for me. I was the victim of a crime. And then I had 3 people pass away in my life who I really cared about. And I developed PTSD, and I had grown up in a dysfunctional home with alcoholism. So I kind of knew what PTSD was, but I didn't really understand it fully until these series of unfortunate events happened. Long story short, I got let go from my job because I just wasn't able to work that much. I had taken a short-term leave, but I tried to come back and it just, the dings and the sounds of like somebody's computer going off or somebody shutting a door was just like sending me through the roof. And I was developing a lot of fatigue, a lot of brain fog. It was just kind of messy for a while. And they gave me my bonus, which I want to say was a $20,000 bonus. But you know, when it hits your bank account, it's like, 7 or whatever.
Yeah, taxes and all that.
Right. And then they gave me some unpaid vacation leave. So like all in, I might have had like 15 grand sitting in my bank account, which was, for me, it was the first time I'd ever seen that kind of cash. And I went to the beach the day I got let go. It was April 11th of 2019. And on April 12th, I was like, I'm going to start my own business. I was getting job offers from other places and they kept telling me it was a hustle and a grind to stay in commercial real estate. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to hustle. I don't want to grind. I want to work for myself. I want to talk about my sobriety. I want to talk about whether to stay or leave a relationship or stay or leave a job. Like, I really want to help young professionals figure out what their purpose is. Now, this is a full circle moment because what ended up happening is that, yes, I started my business helping people stay or go from their jobs. But what ended up transpiring was I publicly came out and talking about being a sex and love addict. And it was something that I had been recovering from privately for years. And it's actually why I had gotten sober from alcohol. Is I was getting into one relationship after another and was miserable. I couldn't figure out, like, how is it that I have all these things going on in my life and yet I can't keep a relationship with a really great man when I really aspire to have marriage? And what I recognized was that a lot of the dysfunction that I had grown up with around people pleasing, codependency, caring a lot what other people thought of me, was actually getting in the way of how I was not only running my business, but it was also why I was unsuccessful in relationships. Now, don't get me wrong. I was getting dates and I was hooking up with people, but I wasn't actually happy. Like, I wasn't happy and fulfilled in the relationships. So I decided to break my own anonymity in 12-step recovery. I decided to start publicly talking about love and relationships, and how love addiction, which is just a compulsive need to be in love, how that shows up not only at work, in your friendships, the way you spend money. And I kind of blew the roof off of it. I was like, I'm just tired of living this like secret life.
Mm-hmm.
And with that came a lot of vulnerability and a lot of moments in my business that I was like, am I fucking crazy? Like, what am I doing talking about this? But what ended up transpiring, as you said in that number, was internationally, people started listening to my podcast. People started hiring me from all over the world to coach with them. And I know that sounds like really glamorous. I want to be really honest that there were days where I had no clients, and there's days that I made no money, and there were days that I thought I was fucking crazy for doing this, and like that this wasn't going to work. And I was putting all this pressure on myself to go harder, faster, stronger. And I ended up giving myself like a really bad gut infection because I was so in fear to make this company work, because I didn't want to go back to those toxic work environments I had been in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And $90,000 later, I like healed my gut infection, which it just to me was crazy that I had put so much stress on my body.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to today, where I, on the side for the last 2 years, had been privately coaching clients who were entrepreneurs. 95% of them at one point were. And they were asking me business advice, and they were asking me about how to trust themselves in business, and as they were trying to in relationship. And what I found was I really loved talking about the practical things that you can do in business around your relationship to yourself, relationship to other people, boundaries, just the logistics of starting a business, and how it's so much more affordable than I think we all think, right?
Yeah.
For me, the way that I set businesses up, it's less than $1,500 total. And you can do a payment plan on that. Like, it's so easy. And
Yeah.
I think I was on a date in July of 2022. And the guy said, if you could do anything in the world and you had all the money in the world, what would you do for a career? And I instinctively said, I'd business coach, like without even hesitating. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm a relationship coach. And I've been like on the low business coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think that I need to pivot, because I want to kind of like with fitness. I was giving all this time and attention to my fitness clients, but I wasn't really taking care of my own fitness. And I found that I was doing the same thing in relationships. Like, I was learning all these really practical tools that were really great in helping my clients. You know, some of them were getting engaged, some of them were feeling more confident, changing jobs, starting businesses, you name it, buying houses. They did it all. But for me, I wasn't having as much success in my dating life. And I was like, that's because every time I learn something, I have to then teach it, or it feel like I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just want to focus on me for a while. And so August 1st of 2022, I pivoted full time to business coaching. I warmed my audience up for like a month, and it's incredible. Like, the results, we haven't looked at the money yet, but like just last week, it was like $2,000 that came in like overnight for
Wow.
breakthrough sessions and stuff. And then Instagram reels have like blown up to like 7,500, where I used to get like 132. You know, it's
Yeah.
been kind of cool that when you like follow your intuition and you
And
go
it
all
just
in.
starts, yeah, you get those nudges from the universe, like those instinctual nudges, like, hey, like sometimes it'd be blinding you, like it's right in your face, and you can't really see it when you're in it.
Yeah.
But when you take a step back and just like look back and realize, like, wow, like, yes, I can do this, and I really truly want to do it. So let's go after it, right? So
Yeah.
that is awesome. There's so much to unpack there. And we probably, my next question, we sort of hinted to it, right? Um, Based on everything you know now, right? What is some advice that Katie needed to hear, or a version of you needed to hear 10 years ago, or when you started this journey?
Yeah. So I would say it was really about, yeah, I mean, I guess I started the business 10 years ago, but really the success of going into my own LLC was 3 years ago. I would say the first bit of advice that I would tell myself or anyone starting a business is, number one, hire a business coach. Like, and I'm not saying that because I am a business coach. I'm saying that because I hired people to make my business grow faster. their wisdom, their knowledge, their loopholes, their like aha moments that they've already gone through saved me so much time and money. Like and I'll give you an example. Like, this is the other thing that I learned is like, I always set my clients up. There's 5 things I always recommend to do. And one of those things is set your legal up. Like, make sure you have, I told you, like,
Yep.
never again am I going to come up with a great idea and
Paperwork.
then somebody's going to go take it. Like, not happening.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's not even for that reason. Like, setting up your one-on-one contract or private coaching or I'm sorry, group coaching, whatever it is, it gives you the ability that if someone hits your website from a different country, you're not going to get fined for that. It's like these little things that we don't even know exist. Like, you get all that legal set up. Now you're free to say, do, be what you need to be for your clients in a public setting and privately.
Mhm.
And so I think that was kind of number one, was business coaching, getting someone to understand what am I trying to do and help me not only with the like practical tools of like setting up a contract, introducing me to a bookkeeper, whatever. But more importantly than that is like the biggest thing was the confidence. It's like, can you really believe in yourself? Can you dream bigger than you think is even possible? My first coach said to me, I'm going to believe in you until you believe in you. And there's going to be days where you don't believe in you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to teach you how to believe in yourself and ultimately love yourself through this journey. What people don't realize, or at least I didn't, is I just thought I could do it on my own. I'm a smart girl. Like, I could figure it out. I went to college. Like, even if I didn't go to college, like, I could figure it out. Right.
Mhm.
But what I found was this was where my growing up in addiction came from. I was fiercely independent, not needing help, didn't want to be a burden. I can do it all on my own. And really what I did was waited a long time to make money. Like, I don't think I got my first $3,000 client until like 6 or 9 months in. And so I just think, like, for me, had I done that, I would have had I hired someone sooner. I mean, we might have been adding a little zero onto that 350 mark. You never
Yeah.
know. And I never
Yeah.
knew that kind of money was possible. So he's like, I
3.5.
needed,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Like
I needed somebody
same
to show me.
same thing. When I seen the limitless potential from earning online, it just completely just blew the lid off of everything.
Blows
And
my
like
mind.
at any given moment, you can wake up to like a $5,000 check, 10 grand, like any moment, right? But you have to go through it first. You have to go through it first before you can truly understand it. And people just look at these numbers, right? Especially, I'm going to eventually put your numbers on the thumbnail for people to like actually click on it. And then when they click on it, they get the actual information of what it takes to get there. But they see those astronomical numbers and they're like, yeah, right. I like, okay. But when you actually like, it's limitless. The only limits are the limits that you put on it. If you want to cap your earning potential at a certain number, get a job that's going to pay you that. But if you want limitless earning potential, like going online, venturing, creating your own business and relationships, it's like endless.
It's so true. And I think when I was watching the online coaching space kind of blow up a few years ago, I was ready for that. I wasn't ready to take that kind of risk. Like, I definitely was loving the steady paycheck that I was getting, but I was miserable in my job. So the predictability of having that income coming in was really soothing to me. I always had this entrepreneurial spirit, but I always liked having the steady paycheck on the side. So when I went all in, I was like, well, I don't want to come across like a used car salesman. Like, I want people to genuinely buy from me because it feels good for them. So that was a little awkward at first. I had to learn how to do that because, I mean, you're essentially like killing what you eat. Like, if I don't make money this month, like, I don't eat. Like, I don't pay rent. And so
Yeah.
there was this like this other mindset. I mean, you asked me what was the other thing I learned. Like, you hear the word money mindset a lot. I think what's really important, or at least my experience was, listen, I grew up lower middle class, right? We lived in a condo. We barely made our bills every month. And like the bills would pile up and my mom would be like 2 or 3 months overdue, right? Car repossessed, stuff like that. Like, I had a home to live in, which is a lot of privilege, but in the same breath, I grew up always fearing that the rug was going to be pulled out from underneath me.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I didn't realize that was programming my nervous system to be like, so that's going to happen for you. And I think it's really important that when you hear the 350 number, that doesn't mean that $350,000 is sitting in my bank account. That
Mm-hmm.
means that over the last 3 years, 350,000 did touch my bank account, but that's not how much is sitting in there now. And I think it's really important to stress that, because we see these big numbers and we think, oh, she must not worry about paying rent, or she must not like worry about these things anymore. No, I still do. And that's because life happens unexpectedly. You still have to account for your personal expenses, the taxes that you pay. 35% of that 350 went to the government,
Yep.
right? I'm a bookkeeper. So,
Yeah.
and then, if I want to take a vacation, or I shared with you, I spent $90,000 healing my gut because I was so worried and stressed about starting a business and leaving a toxic um, company that I'd been working for. So life happens. And I think one of the other biggest lessons is save more money than you think you need to.
Yep.
Because I'm now realizing that, like, oh shit, I had $350,000. I don't have $350,000 right
Yeah.
now.
When I talk to my clients, right, especially
Mhm.
if they still have a job, I always stress like, A, stay in your job and continue to build this business long enough until, it basically pays for your lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? Oftentimes people just want to quit, but your job is just going to keep that reminder, like, hey, I got to make this work because I hate it here, right? So
Yeah.
like your job is a steady reminder that I need this job to pay my bills, pay off debt, and this business is actually going to set me free. So if I'm working them simultaneously long enough to pay off my debt, pay off my bills, right, pay my taxes, and then when this business like scales up and it's able to do all of that for me, then I can leave. But till then, just stay there. Like that's going to be your reminder, like, hey, I hate getting up this early, I hate my
Mm.
bosses, my colleagues, but I'm doing this for a purpose, and that's to set myself free, right? So
Yeah, because
I always stress that.
that purpose is going to be bigger than any sort of discontent or resentment that you might have. And I heard this recently, that think about your full-time job, or the job that you're in now. Think about it being what's think about them as investing in your company, right? Because
Hmm.
like they're paying you a salary or an hourly rate every X amount of days. And you can take a portion of that money and just fund it into your business. And
Yep.
essentially that's how I started, which, like, I was on unemployment. I was paying my taxes correctly according to being on unemployment. I was tracking the hours for unemployment to let them know, like, hey, I am working on my business. Like, don't pay me for this hour because I actually was working on the business, or I made money in my business. So I did it
Hmm.
legit that way. But I kept looking at it like, okay, a combination of unemployment. There were times where I babysat early on. I was reporting that into the government. Like, I just wanted to make sure that I was doing it legit. And then also I wanted to the part-time job. I ended up getting a part-time job my second year in business because I had moved and my rent was higher. And I really wanted, again, I wanted to be legit. I wanted to do it in a way. And I think so many people think, oh, I'll just start this side hustle and I'll get the money in Venmo, and it's cool because they don't tax me. And it's like, no, no, no. If you
Hmm.
really want to grow, you got to do it legit. You got to like report that income, because I find that every time you're cutting corners in that way, it's going to catch up to you. You're going to get a shitty client, or the government's going to come after you. So like, why not just do it by the books? And I think that that's been really supportive of, like, stay in your full-time job, use that money and have that fund your new business, but set your business up properly. So even a little bit of money you're not necessarily going to have to pay taxes on it, because you're going to have
Hmm.
to pay expenses. So it'll all work out in the wash.
Yeah, that's the foundation. You always want your foundation strong enough to build your house on, right? So
Yes.
once you get all your paperwork in order, all your things in place, just make sure that it is sturdy enough to build a skyscraper, right? So like get to work. And those, like, building the foundation, could take several years, but you still are going to get paid, right? Building that foundation, but just be intentional with building that foundation, right? Because things can just happen really quickly.
Hmm.
And like leading to my next question, for coaches that are looking to pivot like you did, right? What are some things that they should be doing right now?
I would say that if you want to make the pivot, you need less than $1,500 to get the business set up. And what that $1,500 will be used for, one, you'll set up a bank account, which is free. Don't pay any fees for bank accounts. You could shop around for banks. If they're trying to charge you a fee, don't do it. And also make sure that the bank account is in the same place that your personal bank account is so that you can easily move money. And it's not going to take 3 to 5 days to get over there. Number two, you want to set yourself up with liability insurance. So we know that well, right? In the fitness industry is we all have liability insurance, whether it's $1 million or $2 million, depending on what you're doing. You want to have that same type of insurance that sets you up for success. Whether it's you have a podcast, you're going to want to make sure to mention that, YouTube channel, whatever, you're going to want to mention that to your liability insurance agent so that you can just make sure that you're protected. And then the third is setting yourself up with a lawyer. So I use this woman by the name of Natalie Puglisi. She's out in California. She's great. What she essentially did was take one-on-one contracts, group, terms of use, any of the things that you need on a website. And she made it really affordable for coaches and fitness professionals to be able to have people affordably get set up and not only affordably get set up, but then also be educated. So there are times where people will push back and be like, well, no, can I get a refund? And I'm like, no, in your contract, it states that it's a no refund policy. You signed it twice. I know my contract well. And there's little things that she puts in there. Like if somebody does want to sue you in the future, they have to come sue you in your home state or country. It's crazy. This thing is ironclad. So I think those are the 3 things that I would get started with because, like I said, I thought that starting a business was so much more money, but between the contracts and the liability insurance, it shouldn't cost you more than $1,500.
Yeah.
And that's for a whole year. And you don't even need to be set up with a sole proprietor LLC just yet, depending on what you're doing. For an online coaching space, you can set up as a sole proprietor and just use your social or an EIN, which is an identification number. It's so easy. But that's where I would start. And then social media. Don't make your website. Let me just go ahead and go against what everyone else is going to say, which is do not waste your time creating a $1,500 or $2,000 website or whatever it's going to cost. Start creating content online, on social media, on Instagram alone. 1 billion people use Instagram per month. That's the place to start showing up. That's the place to start to get a little uncomfortable with your message, but that's how you're going to get clients. I mean, that's how I did it, but that would be my advice.
Awesome. So I do notice that you have a podcast and you are very active on social. So speak on that. What was the origin of the podcast? What's the message that you're trying to communicate through that podcast and your sort of your engagement on the different social media platforms?
Yeah. So I'll start with social media because that's where I actually started. So I started on Instagram because in 2019, Instagram was still as popular as it is today. We didn't have TikTok, or if it was just nobody was really using it. So for Instagram, there's a cool feature where you can just add everything up to Facebook. Nobody's really on Facebook right now. I know somebody who works there and they were like, yeah, nobody's on there except for Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. So if you're doing ads on Facebook, that's where you're going to get the most engagement, but otherwise Instagram's the way to go. And I think for me, it started as my own personal Instagram where I was hanging out with my friends on Friday nights and posting photos. And then I slowly started to transition and I used an app called Canva, Canva, where I started making graphics. You could spend hours in there, but what I just decided was I'm going to start posting one piece of content every day that the person who would ideally I'd like to work with would want to hear. And so, if it was someone who was not able to trust themselves or lose themselves in a relationship, I would speak on that. And then what I started to recognize were podcasts were kind of cool right then. They weren't as popular as they are now. Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle didn't even have a podcast when I had a podcast. I was pretty impressed that I was like, what? They don't have a podcast yet? Okay. And what I found was I want a way to speak freely that's more than a minute because Instagram is only a minute.
Yep.
I want to just speak and tell my story and see if people can relate. And if they relate, I'll encourage them and inspire them to start working together. And so the podcast really started with hey, if you found that you've lost yourself in relationships before, you find that you're not really trusting yourself and you kind of are people pleasing, like you care a lot what other people think of you, let's have a conversation and listen to the podcast. And so I would bring guests on. And what I found was it was cool to bring guests on, but it was a lot of work. So I
Hmm.
don't, as you know, so
Yeah.
I find that the episodes that did really well were the episodes where I was solo talking and just telling my own story. And so over time, we started tracking the metrics and understanding, like, I think to date, we've had like 35,000 people download the podcast, which is cool.
Wow.
I
Hmm.
know, right?
Yep.
Um, but again, like I think comparison came up where I started to see some of my friends who had zeros added to the end of it. And I was like, what do I need to do? And I think it's the same advice on Instagram as it is on the podcast, which is be as specific as you possibly can. I know people say, talk to your ideal client. I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to say, talk to the client that you ideally want to work with, not the person who you think wants to work with you. Like, who do you want to work with? And then
Yeah.
start talking to them. Are they someone who talks down on themselves a lot? Or are they someone who kind of does it, but then they mostly just want to be feeling better? Like, that's the person I want to be working with. I want to be working with that kind of person. So
Yeah.
that's how it kind of transformed. And now it's transformed into business coaching. I sort of keep talking about love and relationships on there, but I've added some business too, which is cool.
Awesome. Like, yeah, like finding your ideal person that you would like to work with is key. Like, I often say, like, if I see a client on the street, I wouldn't want to like cross the street and like try to avoid them. I want to be able to like, hey, what is it that you doing? If I'm with someone, introduce them like,
Yeah.
like a true family friend, right? And it doesn't have to be a person like chasing the numbers where, okay, I think this person will work for my business model. It's like somebody that you would want to hang out with, go on to like a retreat with, and see more frequently than is just like just a number, a statistic,
I
right?
agree.
So that's
The
big.
bonds that we create with our clients are really special. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've like there's so much to cover with your story, right? So like what has been some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome, whether it was fitness, whether it was pivoting to your coaching business or currently right now? What have been some of the biggest challenges?
I think some of the biggest challenges have to do with confidence and have to do with my belief that I can make more money than I even dream is possible. Like I said, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. And so I didn't know that you could make this kind of money. And when I would see other coaches, I would compare myself. That's where the confidence is coming in, right? Like I didn't know it was possible for me. I didn't really think it was possible for me, I'll be honest. And then I was constantly questioning whether I was doing it right. So the biggest lessons that I've had to learn is that, and I bring God into my business. Like I'm like, all right, listen, I don't know what you guys are doing up there. I don't know what lesson I need to learn. So like, can you all talk to each other? Because like, I believe in spirits and I believe in the people that I lost, that I care a lot about. I know they're up there working it out with God, being like, all right, let's send her a win. And so I'm constantly on the spiritual side of my business, just making it really safe to receive. Because when I can do that, then I can show up for my client in a way that makes it possible for them to realize that it's safe to receive and it's safe to have money and it's safe to have a business that is consistent and predictable. So I would say that I spend a majority of my time like getting rid of the beliefs that I'm not good enough, getting rid of the beliefs that I can't make enough money, and instead replacing those with I am good enough. I do know what I'm doing to run this business. This business is going to be a multi-million dollar business. Now, I never knew that was possible, but I started following coaches who were like, I want to run a multi-million dollar business. And then they did. And I was like, I can do that. And then I think the other part is like making it safe to receive money, like really digging down deep into some of those fears, doubts, and insecurities about how I grew up. And I was like, it's cool. The rug's not going to be pulled out from underneath me. Like there's always going to be enough money to support me. And really trying to practice that. I'm not perfect at it. There are days where a client doesn't pay and I'm like, going ham. I'm going ham. Like sometimes I'm just like, what but other days I am really grounded. And so it's just I'm human, man. Like
Yeah, and we all
it's just
are.
honoring that. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed like long ago, like, hey, these guys really didn't know what the hell they were doing, and they still did
No,
it, right?
come
And that, it
on.
took me
Right?
it took me a while to realize that, and after I was like, oh man, so I don't have to have all the pieces. I just got to continuously take action, right?
It's so
Like
true.
you're going to get those nudges, you're going to get those inspiration in forms of other people who's been on
Hmm.
the path longer and done similar things that you want to do. And then you realize, like, hey, they didn't have all the answers. They had to go and walk the path. And when they got the answers, what they did was show the way, right? And it's up to you to either take it or discard it. And I just chose to continue to build upon what people have done on the path before me.
So true. I like how you were like humble enough to say, my coach says this all the time. She's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I run a
Yeah.
$1 million business. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. And then when I'm learning stuff and it's working, I'm teaching it to you. When it's not working, I'm teaching it to you. It's great. That's
Yeah,
what I do with my
like
clients.
yeah, that's what my channel is about. Like I document my journey in entrepreneurship and personal development, right? And there are some times where I am confident I know what it is, right? Because I've done it hundreds of times. Like when it comes to personal training, when it comes to waking up and going after it, I've done it hundreds of times. But when comes to doing something new, I'm on the journey to create $1 million in a year, right? I haven't done it, right? I
Right.
haven't. I know people who've done it, and I'm
Mhm.
doing the things that they've done, but I don't know. I don't know if that once the year clock is over, if I'm going to hit that $1 million. But it's just one of those big goals that you just go after, and whether you fail or succeed is still a win because you're going to learn so much along the way, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just like set big goals and fail miserably. like right, like I failed my way so many times because my story similar like yours. I grew up poor, right? 1 bedroom apartment in Brooklyn in New York, and I continuously just failed forward, right?
Hmm.
Didn't know what I was doing, didn't know how to acquire clients, didn't know how to train clients, didn't know how to do the content marketing thing. And I just kept on going. And then now I never had my own room, never had my own office, right? And then just continue to fail forward. So if you see this now, this is sort of like my high school bedroom that I wanted to grow up in. But
I love
now
it.
I've done so much steps and I'm able to like, create this. Next step is like a creative working space, right? That's the next iteration of the goal, right? But it's just don't know how I'm gonna do it. Just
I'm
take
just
these
gonna
little
figure it out.
steps, have these type of conversations with other successful entrepreneurs along the way, and until that vision is realized.
We have that in common. Yeah. You just reminded me that my mom and I shared a bedroom for like the first 6 years of our 6 or 7 years of my life. Like, yeah, I forgot about that until you mentioned it. And there
Yeah.
was a sense of accomplishment when I ended up getting my own room a couple years ago and then now have my own studio, which feels really great. So I'm glad we're talking about this because it
Yeah,
is. It's
like
a
one
good
of the
reminder that it
yeah,
doesn't take much time to get there.
no, it doesn't. It just got to put in the work, man.
Mhm.
Like I often preach, like conversations are healing, right? And
Mm.
there's money in conversations. Like businesses are built on conversations, communities are built in conversations. So the more prosperous conversations we have, the more prosperous ideas and the more prosperous manifestations occur, right? So
Amen.
that's literally the journey in a nutshell, but you got to be willing to do those things and have those conversations and learn those brutal lessons like you did, right? Like
Yeah,
the paperwork, like you would have never learned that lesson if you didn't go through it, right?
I
And
know.
what you did was save maybe hundreds of thousands of people who that wouldn't have come to their mind. Like, what do you mean
Yeah.
paperwork? I'm doing this for fun. Like, what do you
Right.
mean like intellectual property? They don't even know what IP is, right?
No,
And it
it's so
just
true.
forces them to like learn and research these things. So it's like you're basically jumping the learning curve. What took you 3 years, this conversation probably like, oh really? Let me put these things in place and see if I could speed that up real quick.
Oh my gosh.
So
I
it's
mean, it took me months to start the business. Like I had a client recently say, "Oh, I set up my business in 24 hours with the steps I gave her." And then you just reminded me of something. I was on a call with a coaching client the other day. They've changed their therapy practice over to coaching practice so they can help more people. And this has been a while now. They've been in business maybe 6 months. And so one of them was explaining that he's feeling a little bogged down with a couple of boundary issues that are coming up. And I said, well, doesn't it state in your contract that you can't change, they lose a session if they cancel within 24 hours? And he goes, oh no, well, they're not on contracts. And I literally leaned in and I was like, so what part of that lesson did we, like, I'm joking with them, but I was like, wait, I was there that day. Didn't we move everyone over to contracts? And they were like, well, we didn't move these 5 people. And I was like, everybody needs to be on a contract by the end of the day. This session is like, we were joking. Like, I'm saying it funny to you and direct to them, but I was like, this session is over. We're going to give you your time back. You need to go get everybody on a contract and then call me back and we'll have another session. They were like, okay, we'll be right back.
There you go.
Like, no, do not do this, you guys.
Handle your business, because like coming from the corporate world, all we have to do is we don't know what we're signing, right? When we sign our employee sort of W-2s or whatever, we're just like handed these things and we're like, okay, where do I punch in? Like little sheep, like where do I punch in? When do I have lunch? When can I use the bathroom? Like literally being groomed and programmed since kids, right? Like, okay, you go to school, right? You follow orders, you ask to go to the bathroom, and then we carry that onto our work too. But then when we're on our business, we're taking the authoritative role and we have to actually put these things in place, and it's foreign to us, right? So that's one of the biggest things that you have to learn is like you're the ruler of your kingdom, of your business, and you have to run it like a government, right? You got to put the paperwork in place. You got to put your commandments and all that in place so that your business runs smoothly, because any sign of blood, people will take advantage of it, and it's just human nature. It's human nature.
It's so true.
So flipping the other side of the coin from the biggest challenges, right? What has been some of your biggest wins?
Yeah. So some of my biggest wins have been seeing clients who have gotten engaged, bought houses, who just feel like they trust themselves. Like that's been really cool to see. And speaking of clients, I have to go in a few minutes because I've got a client. I think.
Oh yeah, totally. We kept you long enough.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And then what was cool is I remember, it's funny, man, like the day that I got $5,000 in my bank account from a client was actually more exciting than the day I hit my biggest month ever, which was $28,500. Honestly, the 28.5 had come and went, and it was like weeks later, and my assistant was like, do you know you had your biggest money month? And I was like, what? And we like took a minute to celebrate, and we all went out, and I like treated them for the day, but like that wasn't even nearly as exciting as the day that I hit like 5,000. And then the day I hit 10,000 was really cool because I just kept like pushing that goal. I was like, come on, we can do this. We can do this. So I think those were pretty cool. But I always say this, like the money doesn't mean anything because I received that money from the services that I exchanged with clients. Like my clients are everything to me. I mean, like you said, they feel like family. Like we've built this bond where I am a safe and trusted confidant to them, and to see their confidence grows, like there's nothing better. I feel like that's the biggest win. And then it's also the rewards of having the money and being able to spend it on things that bring me a lot of joy and fill my cup up so that I can go do it again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, where can people get in contact with you if they want to like seek coaching or seek counsel advice from you? And where can they find the podcast that you mentioned?
Absolutely. So there's 3 ways to get in touch. The first is on Instagram, kg.katiegrimes. The second way is through my podcast, Anything for Love, which is on Spotify and iTunes. And then the third way is you can hit me up on my website, katiegrimes.com. It has all the services there, but I would say that where I spend the most amount of time is Instagram. So if you're actually wanting to like have a conversation quickly, I can't coach in the DMs, but you can ask me like, hey, I'm going through this, like, what do you recommend? Me or my team are happy to like jump in there and just give you some insight. But you can find the links to all my coaching courses in all 3 of those places.
Awesome. So I'll be sure to link that down in the description. Any parting words before we wrap this up?
I would say if you have the dream and desire to be a business owner, then go ahead and do it. I know you're saying to yourself, like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to get started. Well, then hire someone to help you get started. And there's so many people who are willing to do it. Um, Listen, if you have that quiet whisper, like that whisper is not going to stay quiet for that long. It's going to get louder and louder and louder until eventually you're either forced out or you make that choice. So why not just make the choice and spend a little bit of cash to get a really big reward in your life?
Awesome. Love it. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much, Katie, for
Thank
joining
you.
us and giving us so much wisdom in 45 minutes. This is probably the longest episode, but so much gems in there. And we're going to be having this episode like we're slowly migrating it onto your anchors and Spotify and stuff, but we'll be having this on YouTube, and it's going to stay there, man, for everyone to come and figure out, like, is this path for them, right?
Mhm.
So thank you so much once again. And again, if you guys are a fitness professional, coach, looking to get your story out there, bless the community with your insight and perspective, feel free to reach out to me in the DMs and in the comments, and we'll love to have you guys. But till the next time, thank you again, and we are out.
Bye.
Peace.